You know the drill. On Mondays, we'll recap the week, the best win, and a statement from a former Bears fan. My college football top 12. We'll dig into that deeper. Best win, some of the resume stuff with McShay. Heisman, also a revisit of the draft prospects of one Jameis Winston, and he was in attendance for Jets-Pats, so he has some stuff on that. Everyone from the show came over to visit me at my house, and I taped this intro after we taped that segment. Apparently, I thought it went better than it did. Life advice. So we've got a long one for you on a Monday. Enjoy. Week 8. Okay, let's talk best win. I'm sure we could go Cleveland here, but I think Philly deserves some love because it feels like it's been a little while since we actually talked about them being a good football team. So they beat Cincinnati 37-17. Week 4, after they lost to the Bucs, they were 2-2. Felt like the head coach was out. People posting videos of Sirianni getting into it with fans. Now they're 5-2, playing the Browns and the Giants before Cincinnati certainly helps. But they were dominant in the second half yesterday, 27-7. They only had 3 first-half possessions because of a monster possession from Cincinnati. They scored on 6 straight possessions. Hurts has 9 total touchdowns in his last 3 weeks. Hasn't thrown a pick since week 3. Saquon's been great the last 2 weeks. It's the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. Baltimore's number 1. Nobody's catching Baltimore. They're like 30 yards better at number 1 than even Philadelphia is. More under center from Hurts, something that they weren't having great success with earlier in the year, but it's something clearly they want to prioritize, even though they downplayed it. But it seems like it definitely showed up in the rushing attack yesterday. So 21 snaps from Hurts under center, which is high for him. And this defense that felt like they couldn't win a pass rush, but there was all this talent from the draft. Like, what is up with these guys? Can they get some takeaways? Well, they're getting the takeaways, and they're holding opponents to 5 yards per play, which is 6th best in the NFL. Denver's defense is number 1 in that category, and it would make sense when you watch Denver's defense because it's really good. They're 7th in scoring defense. So look, here's the point: is that things are coming together for the Eagles. For a team that when they were 2-2 with this roster, like, how are they drafting all of these dudes? How do they have these 2 guys on the outside? And they bring in Saquon. And it's supposedly one of the best offensive lines. They got rid of the coordinators. It's just all in Sirianni. And I just don't think when you have a talented roster, I don't know. I think the guys go out there between the lines and play football. And maybe the NFL and college are more dictated by who's in charge of the whole thing. But it just felt like the team was too good to be that disappointing, which is why we talked about how disappointing they were. But now they've put together 3 really good weeks. Yes, lesser opponents previous to Cincinnati. I still think Cincinnati's a tough opponent, but this is a 5-2 football team that is back in the playoff picture. Baltimore could clearly be argued as the team. If you beat them, then that's the best win because Baltimore is maybe on the short list with the Chiefs and the Lions as the 3 best teams in the NFL. I'm not sure if everyone would agree with me, but that's kind of the way I'm feeling about it right now. Lions dominant again. Chiefs we'll get to. Houston feels like they're overlooked a little bit. We'll get to them when we talk Colts. But if you're beating Cleveland, if you're Cleveland beating Baltimore, it's just that Philly's win feels like there's something building here and it's momentum. Whereas Cleveland's win, it's like, hey, Cleveland had a fun Sunday afternoon after not having very many all season long. They scored 20 points as a team for the first time this season. And that's with Jameis Winston as a starter. Touchdown drives of 70, 72, and 69 yards from the Browns in the second half. Getting Teller back on the offensive line certainly helps. Chubb has been back, but it wasn't like it felt pretty one-dimensional from this Browns team yesterday. They're just going to drop back and chuck it. Jameis went, 27 of 41 for 334 yards. There's also that element of this Baltimore pass defense where statistically it tells you it's really disappointing that I was arguing against what the stats said because the resumes of opposing quarterbacks, what Baltimore had gone up against, like, look at that group. Don't worry about that number. Don't let somebody on TV tell you that they're fatally flawed because of their pass defense. Well, this feels a little bit different. Now, to be fair, too, they were without corner Marlon Humphrey, who's been terrific. Also, Nate Wiggins was out in this one. But Cleveland moved the ball against them. So now I am perhaps more alarmed than I was about their pass defense than I was before because I just thought, well, look at who they have played. I think at one point they'd played 4 of the top 5 guys at QBR in the NFL. Look, once Baltimore goes up 24-23 in this one, there were 2 dropbacks from Lamar where it was incomplete. And they're probably 2 of my favorite Lamar plays all season long. They just will be. The way he is able to, in the pocket, seem like it's over, and it's never over, and then just finds a way to sort of eject himself back like he's in a James Bond car. And he's just kind of magic. It's not even a hop. I guess it is. I mean, it has to be something that he's physically doing, but it'll just look like he is too inside the chaos to escape it. And then he just magically just pops directly backwards like 3 or 4 yards, gets out of the way of everything, and is able to make a throw. Although on these 2 that I'm talking about, him just getting away from everything, they were both incompletions, and I wrote them down just because I enjoyed them that much. Anyway, once Baltimore goes up 24-23, you're like, okay, this is a wrap. It's a fun little afternoon for Cleveland, but it's not going to matter. And then Cleveland has the football. And we'll share this with you because nothing to not share. I sent Big Cat a text because I know those guys love Jameis. And I was like, this interception from Jameis on this drive is going to be awful. And he threw it. He threw the interception. The problem is Kyle Hamilton dropped it. And very shortly after that, touchdown, game winner, Browns on the board. Kansas City is 7-0, and it doesn't feel like it. It's a bit like, I don't know if Indiana football is a fair comparison because Indiana football has not necessarily had the same level of success recently. Recent history is that they're not what the Chiefs are in the NFL, right? But maybe this analogy, boy, it sounds worse as I do it out loud, but stay with me here a little bit. The point is that Kansas City's 7-0, and maybe it's because we take them for granted, or maybe because you're watching them every single week and you're like, is this team actually this good? And they are with Mahomes because he just figures out the problems better than anyone playing that position. And he's certainly not having the best year of anyone playing that position. We've been over this. The offense is down, the defense is up, and there's just these games each week with Kansas City. You're like, this is a game again? They were up 17-13. Mahomes is throwing from his own end zone. The ball is tipped. 9th pick on the season for Mahomes, which leads the NFL. Both Baker and Jordan Love have 9 apiece. Love leaving the game yesterday. Alarming because he was hurt throughout so much of that game. So it wasn't really that final hit when he left the game. It just looked like he was struggling physically. And they're worried. And I'm alarmed as well as somebody who picked the Packers to come out of the NFC. So the Raiders have the football, the Kansas City 3-yard line. 4 plays later, a negative 5-yard drive. So you're like, all right, so they didn't pay for that interception from their own end zone with 3 yards to go. Raiders fumble. Kansas City had on one of the ensuing scoring drives, they had a completion where Mahomes threw it to the intended receiver. It went over his head, and the receiver behind him caught it. There's just all of these plays, it feels like more and more with Kansas City this season where you're like, that happened? I mean, if you hate them, you must absolutely hate watching them this year. Again, staying undefeated, yet doesn't feel dominant because of the standard that we have for their offense. Houston wins at home against the Colts. They're 6-2. And today they're the 2 seed in the AFC. And I never like throwing this out there because it gets thrown out too much because I'm not sure who's in track or who's in charge of keeping track of all this stuff. But it does feel like Houston's an afterthought, maybe because it's not surprising. But even with last year's spike, a rookie QB doing something that we're not used to seeing, and D'Amico Ryan's feeling like he's finding a way with a defense that isn't loaded with names. Although I do really like their linebackers. You get the point. Like last year, the story is this big surprise, and it's C.J. Stroud. And yet this year, C.J. is arguably better in more numbers. He's going to have more picks this season than he did last year. He stayed really clean with a 23-5 touchdown interception ratio. He's got 4 this year, so we'll pass that. Yards per attempt down a little bit. But when Nico's healthy, like clearly he's better this year than he was last year. So they're a 2 seed in the AFC, but I don't know what the right way to talk about them is. Meaning, like if they were bad last year, we'd be talking about them more because it was a surprise. And now that because it's not a surprise because they were good last year, but I don't know. They feel like a completely off the radar, really good football team. So this is another thing to throw in there too. It's not the schedule. Their strength of schedule is tied for the toughest strength of schedule with Baltimore of any of the 7 playoff projected teams today in the AFC. So it's not really one of those deals. You're like, they didn't really beat anybody. Although I think I've seen that argument made. All right. On the other side of this game is the Anthony Richardson experience. He's the worst starting quarterback of anyone who's actually a guy in the NFL, and it's bad. I mean, as bad as the numbers are, you have to kind of watch it for a couple hours to see. Like, when an NFL quarterback makes just an awful throw, and it just looks so weird because even the worst quarterbacks are usually pretty dialed into what you think they're supposed to be doing, even if it doesn't work out, or somebody just doesn't miss. Like when a real starter misses a receiver by 10 yards and the ball's hitting the dirt, you'll notice it because it reminds you of how infrequently it will actually happen in a game. With Richardson, it happens all game long. And he hits the huge bomb, just like he did in the beginning of the year. And people talk about his physical gifts, but those are cool videos. But the rest of it just isn't good. Now, if you want to tell me that somebody else is worse than him because of a spot starter, you want to tell me Rattler's worse, fine. You want to tell me Rattler's backup, Hayner's worse from Fresno, sure, you got me. But as far as dudes that were projected to be the guy and it is their job, I don't know how you can make an argument that anybody's worse than him. He was 2 for 15 in the first half yesterday. 23 seconds left, third down from his own end zone. He throws the ball out. We can bitch about play calling, but if you're an NFL quarterback, like you have to know risk reward in that spot where you're like, okay, well, this probably won't make a ton of sense if we don't make the play. Throws the pick, 7 yards later, one play. All of a sudden, Houston has a 17-10 lead at halftime for a game that was still 10-10. I mean, the Colts are 4-4, and that seems like a miracle. And so now you're left with this Richardson thing. I don't know how many people would disagree with me based on what they've seen this year because it's really bad. I mean, he has, I think at this point, I wrote it down, he has 55 completions. He has 41 carries. And there's just all of these little things. And I know he's getting crushed today because it looked like when he was tackled, his left leg, he got hurt and he asked out of the game. And you're like, oh, this guy, like he's hurt again. And then he just said, no, straight up, I was tired. Like that run took something out of me and I knew I wasn't going to have it on the next play. That's just not going to go over well when you're not playing well. I'm not going to beat up on him a ton for it because I think the other part of this is that 4-4, who are you? Well, sure, you'd be better with Joe Flacco, but better at what? Maybe sneaking into the playoffs to then do what? Likely get destroyed by a good team. So is it worth pulling the plug on Richardson as bad as he's been to do that, knowing that it would be better? And I know like week to week, we can go, hey, they have a better chance to win. That's you just got to go out there. You owe it to the rest of the guys. Yeah, but you also owe it to yourself when you spent the number 4 overall pick 18 months ago on Richardson. You owe it to yourself to confirm that you were wrong about the pick. So I have no issue with them running him back out there if he's healthy. How about a tweet that was doing a lot? I saw one this weekend. It was my guy Greeny over at Get Up. Very disappointed with the Jets. Quote, in a season filled with embarrassing performances, that was the worst. The Jets lost to the Pats. In a history filled with horrible seasons, this may be the worst. The Jets of 2024 are one of the truly colossal failures in recent sports memory, and it only gets worse from here. They're not good. Not telling you that they're good. I guess I just didn't feel like I was a part of history yesterday. Grandkids pulling up by the fire. Double R. What was it like when the Jets lost to the Pats? Yeah, I don't know. People hate the Jets, though. Hate the Jets. And Greeny loves the Jets. So he's just very disappointed with all of that. All right. I have a final statement here. I told everybody I was a Bears fan this year because of my belief in Caleb Williams, a belief that I rarely have with first-round quarterbacks because I just, as we know, we've covered it. Like, I don't know, maybe. But I thought Caleb was one of the most dynamic players I'd seen in college football. Rocky start, even rockier in comparison to the guy that went behind him in Jaden Daniels, who's been one of the best quarterbacks in football this season. So this was a top 2 pick showdown that I was invested in emotionally. It's not like I didn't think Jaden was going to be good. It's just, and even with the rib injury, Jaden was better. But I would say after 7 games, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. So officially, I'm not a Bears fan. Caleb coming into this game was the only number 1 pick at quarterback to have a winning record through 6 games since 1970. So as bad as the first couple of weeks could be, things got a lot better for our guy. We know that. But he had 36 passing yards through 3 quarters. I'm not an excuse guy because I'm not a Bears fan anymore. So I'm not making excuses. But he was pressured on 52% of his dropbacks. O-line health was an issue in this one as well. But I found a positive for Caleb Williams in this game. Yeah, believe it or not, I did. He looked shot sitting on the bench as they were getting ready to end the first half. Like, just, this isn't fun. And that front from Washington, how about my guy Johnny Newton, Illinois? They're really good. I don't know if Washington's defense is really this good because prior, like some of the offensive numbers you could dig in all this stuff. But man, at least there's guys you can name all those years. Although Washington feels like their front four always had some names on it. But it looked so bad for Keb. You're like, how is he going to respond? Well, respond he did. He fought back. 3 drives, late, 2 touchdowns wrapped around a goal line fumble where they decided to hand it off to an O lineman. And then still took the lead after that. So Caleb, we all learned about resiliency from the number 1 pick. I think that's the positive. Then something else happened. Washington hit a Hail Mary with 2 seconds left from 52 yards out on a tip ball where the tipped ball was tipped by a player that had his back to the scramble because he was talking shit to the fans. I do think a technology suggestion for broadcast on Hail Marys, let's have a little picture-in-picture. Just stick it in the lower right, maybe lower left, actually, have it behind the quarterback dropping back so it doesn't interfere with the scanning of the football going into the end zone. But we can see the scrum live picture-in-picture while the quarterback is back there dancing the whole time. And we could see number 29 decide, I'm going to talk shit to the fans while the play is live behind me. So tip ball, touchdown, Hail Mary, and I'm out. I'm not even from there. So it was pretty easy to just stop being a Bears fan this weekend. Okay, let's do it. Our college football top 12 through 9 weeks. Not much change between me and the AP through the first 6, and then there's some, obviously, discrepancies there. Theirs probably carries more weight. Oregon at number 1, they're in. I mean, think about this. I mean, we know the offensive numbers are terrific. Another ranked win this week against Illinois, who still remains ranked. So, normally when we were sitting there with 4 teams, we're looking at all this stuff, and whether it was telling the truth or sometimes it was lying, where it's like, oh, at the time they were ranked or ranked now. I mean, whoever was putting those arguments together usually was trying to find a way to make the team that they were arguing for look a little bit better. And I'm sure I'm guilty of it sometimes too. But look, with this one, Oregon's got Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Washington, and then a Big Ten title game. So I think you can already say Oregon's in because they could lose the Big Ten title game. I mean, I guess they could lose to one of those teams, but not likely. Georgia at number 2, in second place in the SEC, still at Ole Miss, and then Tennessee back-to-back weeks coming up here shortly. I've got Penn State at 3. I thought that win against Wisconsin, because Wisconsin's just a little bit better than they've been. Like I would think their last few weeks they're better, even though their quarterback's always good for interception, which was a huge turning point in this game. But Bo Prabula comes in right at the half. Aller, who was limping around, and you could see when he was leaving the sidelines, like he was going in for treatment, who's been the 7th best quarterback in passer rating in college football. But Prabula, oddly enough, like sometimes you watch him out there, you're like, is he a better fit for this offense than Aller is? But, we've come around on Aller after the USC game. So, look, the problem for this one is 10-7 Wisconsin in third, pick 6. Like I said, their quarterback's usually always good for a pick, and that kind of turned the game. But Prabula was able to kind of just run it out. And now I'm left with this. Am I going to find a way to talk myself into Penn State against Ohio State this upcoming week? Because I think I did it last year. I don't know if I picked them, but the funny thing is, and here's the irony, I have Ohio State at 4 with their close win against Nebraska. That just looks bad considering Nebraska lost 56-7 at Indiana just a week ago, right? Penn State fans know this routine, and I try to tell you, it had nothing to do with you, it has nothing to do with the campus. There's no history. I don't care. But I cared when we talked about teams having a chance to play for a national championship. Have you beaten just one really good team? Like, is there one team that you've beaten that's really good? And I felt like, looked at the expansion projections, there would be these years that Penn State, as Fox Broadcast shared with us a couple of weeks ago during a Penn State game, where it was like they would have, in the 4-team system, made the playoffs 6 times as opposed to making it 0 times with the expanded 12 based on where their ranking was from the committee. And you're like, cool. But like that's not really the point, is it? But that's going to be the point this year. And this is what I've tried to tell everybody this entire time. The irony of the whole explanation of what I'm trying to do here is that what if Ohio State loses to Penn State and then Ohio State beats Purdue, Northwestern? They've got that game with Indiana. So they beat Indiana. Indiana might be saving the Ohio State resume here a little bit. But Ohio State would still be in. They would still be in the playoff. So I guess the Indiana win would be enough because of how well they've played this year. Number 5, Miami, same as the AP. Number 1 in offensive yards per play. Beat up on Florida State, who's on another quarterback. There's 3 undefeated teams in the ACC. Clemson's 5-0. Miami's 4-0. SMU is 4-0. Wait a minute, 4 undefeated teams because Pitt's only played 3 conference games. So that's 4 undefeated teams in the ACC, at least in conference play, and Miami's not going to play any of them. So once again, expansion. Awesome. No, because the conferences are so big now, like Miami's not going to play any of those teams. They'll have to play in an ACC championship, but, like, what are we doing? All right, Texas at 6. A close one with Vandy. They were up 27-17. Vandy drops out of the polls now. They're an okay football team. So Ewers has not been the same guy. I think that's the alarming thing if you're a Texas fan. He just hasn't been the same guy since the injury, but they still have A&M on their schedule. I have A&M 7th. The AP has them 10th. Just a great Saturday night down there at that stadium. Just unbelievable second half. Marcel Reed comes in for Wigman, completely changes the game. LSU can't do anything with him. His read option stuff, the one keeper at the mesh point where he kept it there forever, incredible. And Nussmeier, who, guys, I did the Saturday pod with McShay and Steve Mensch, and, they were talking about like Nussmeier being number 1 as far as quarterback rankings for the draft next year with how crisp he was in the first half and how well he's played and the anticipation throws and all this different stuff. And then he's always good. Like Nussmeier on 3rd and 15 threw it to the lines and converted. And I was like, this is what you get with him. Because like, he's going to see it and be like, I think I can get this. And then he had a Cam Ward type throw. And then just the wheels fell off for all of that. But I still think LSU is a pretty good football team. And now A&M is 5-0 in first place in the SEC. I think 10 is just way too low for this team. They get South Carolina, New Mexico State, Auburn, and they will finish, as we just said, with Texas. Clemson, I have 8th. There's 2 teams tied in the AP at 11. So I have them 8th. Their offense is really good. How about this number? 10th in yards per play this season. I couldn't believe when I looked it up. Clemson was 103rd in offense on yards per play in college football in 2023. So it's a lot better. At number 9, I've got BYU. They beat UCF, another team on their 3rd quarterback. The defense is, I guess, good enough in the 40s on some of the stats. It's not terrible. 12-0 is not out of the question. Right now, BYU is favored by 17 at Utah, which no one would have predicted this summer. At number 10, I've got Iowa State. The only ranked team that they're going to be playing will be Kansas State, who's 17. So when I look at Iowa State and where they're at and how crazy the Big 12 is, like, it's just hard to find a way that many teams are going to get eliminated from this. And then who's going to replace them? So I think a lot of these teams are already in, even though they're going to finish up with Kansas State. And is Kansas State even out of this thing? I mean, they're 7-1. They're not out of it either. So number 11 for me is Notre Dame. The AP has them at 8. They're going to be 11-1 with 3 ranked wins. I think they'll be 11-1. They'll have probably the worst loss of any of these teams. They'll have ranked wins against A&M, which, again, that win will look better. Navy, which is, borderline. And then Army's number 21 right now. So it'll be funny when people are arguing Notre Dame's resume based on the seeding. You're like, look at their 3 ranked wins. It's not like there's teams out there going, yeah, we've got 6 of them. It's just hard to find them, especially with the new expanded schedules. At number 12, finally, I have Indiana. Let's give it to the Hoosiers. The win against Washington was actually a game. They closed it out. No Rourke. Taven Jackson, the backup, who actually lost his gig last season, was pretty good for him. And Justice Ellison, the running back, has been a beast the last couple of weeks, and he was terrific against the Huskies. But there is worth like looking at this quickly here. Ohio State at 10-2 with the Indiana win now. And that's the whole point of like Indiana here, is they could actually save Ohio State in the argument. Because if they're fourth in the AP and they lose a close game to Penn State, Ohio State's still going to be in if they beat Indiana. I don't even know that there's going to be much debate about it, but will they be really that good? I mean, it seems crazy to think Ohio State wouldn't be one of the 12 best teams in the country. I'm not even saying that, but there's some real benefit of the doubt stuff happening there. As far as the SEC overloading this, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. You've got Georgia. You've got Texas. I did not rank Tennessee. Tennessee is ranked in the AP. The AP still loves Tennessee. Hell, you want to talk about Alabama love? ESPN's Football Power Index has Alabama 3 still. So don't tell Cannell. There's just a lot of like, it's not chaos. It actually seems like very little chaos, where you're going to get done with some of these teams going, I don't know if they beat anybody. Like, all right, let's go play for a national championship. And by the way, Colorado could go 9-3, 10-2. The start of the year, totally wrong. Thought they just carry over from last year. Couldn't block. Totally undisciplined. Not a very good football team. Constantly talking about them. Certainly became annoying. And now that, I don't know, it's funny, like people just started, I was in the group too, being like, all right, I don't want to talk about the Buffaloes anymore. Look at their schedule. They might win 9. They maybe could win 10 games this year. And we'll see. Mondays, that means Todd McShay, who also has his new podcast out, From the Ringer, on Spotify, available everywhere. The McShay Show out Saturday nights. I did a recap with he and Steve Mensch, which was a blast after A&M's nice win against LSU. It'll be out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so a lot going on for our guy, Todd. What's up, dude?
I think that Saturday night show is going to quickly become the favorite thing I do in work all week, every week. I mean, to get you on, kind of texting a little like, when are we starting this thing? To get you on, like, from your living room or wherever you were in that palace on Manhattan Beach, without sleeves, kind of, you know, a little like, it's like kind of like talking to a scout who's been on the road for 2 months, a little bit ornery. But I don't know. It felt like the old days of like sitting at a bar, you know, just talking ball, and it didn't feel like we were on air, and that's kind of the whole goal. So anyway, I had a lot of fun.
Mission accomplished, because I thought once we got warmed up, when we got done, I was like, that was a lot of fun. So thanks for having me on. Okay, so off of that, because we did a lot on LSU A&M, you can go into that and they talk some quarterbacks, which I really enjoyed doing, hanging with two guys that do this for a living. But I wanted to look at, as I did my top 12 this morning, and I was looking at it last night, and I just started thinking, like, some of these teams are going to have these really weird resumes. And this is the expansion of 4 to 12, something I was arguing about the entire time. Like, all right, cool. Like, the games will be good, extra money, the whole deal. But, like, there's going to be some weird resumes in there. So let's go through a few things, a few exercises here of the projected, you know, or in the neighborhood. So you don't have to be 12th in the AP and eliminate everybody else. But I think most of the answers are going to be amongst that group of teams. Who has the best win?
I would say Oregon. For a couple of reasons. Oregon over Ohio State, sorry. For a couple of reasons. I think we all watched, let's start back to preseason, right? You included. A lot of people were like, hey, like, watch out for Oregon. They may win the whole thing, or they may, you know, very likely could be in that top 4, not that it matters as much, but they could be one of the top seeds in this. And then they came out the first 3 games, I think it was, and you and I were texting and talking, and the offensive line didn't play great. They weren't dominating inferior opponents. And I started to wonder, all right, great. Like, you know, Phil Knight open up the pocketbook, go out and grab any player you want. But is this a team? Are they physical enough? Are they the type of team that can compete against an Ohio State or one of the top dogs in the nation? And to that point, like at that point of the season going into Ohio State, I was not convinced. And I know you were kind of a little bit worried about your preseason pick of Oregon winning it all. And then they came out and they played as a team. They played with physicality. They were the better team in the trenches on both sides of the ball in that game, in my opinion. And they were able to hold off Ohio State at the end there and got a huge win. So just based on, like, I guess for my opinion, it all changed with that game. And since then, my goodness, like Illinois this past week, that's a good Illinois team. Not a great team, but that's a good team where if they had won by 7, 10, I would have been like, that's a nice win. They kicked Illinois' ass. I mean, top to bottom, beginning to end, it was just dominant. So I think, from a perception standpoint, it was a critical game for Oregon, but also for a confidence standpoint. I feel like that game galvanized the Oregon Ducks.
Agree on everything you said. It was the first 2 weeks. Gabriel got sacked 7 times. Then he went 4 weeks without being sacked. They weren't really running the football, and now they can run the football, and they have weapons everywhere. And I think physically there was no question. There was no gap in that Ohio State game. So I agree with everything you said, except for that being the best win. I think it's Georgia going into Texas.
Okay.
Because there was no doubt. Like Ohio State, it isn't the moral victory because it's Ohio State and the standards. There's a few things there. And look, Oregon was unlucky in the start of that game. So, however you want to play it out, I didn't feel like, there's no way Ohio State would have won this game. I felt like there was no way Texas was winning that game as we were watching it play out.
Agreed.
So, and it's on the road. Yep. And it really comes down to two, like, who do you think's better right now, Texas or Ohio State?
Whew.
Right? It's kind of
right this second. I wonder what Vegas would have. My guess is neutral site, Texas would be favored by 3.
Yeah, probably.
I would slight lean Texas. Great question, though. I love it. I just don't trust Ohio State yet. I don't think Texas is playing up to its standard. I don't think Quinn Ewers with the oblique injury is 100%. I think we've seen that. That's been proven. But I think as a team, this would have been an easy spot last week. They struggled. It was lackadaisical, but they were sluggish, I thought. But I think Texas is a slightly better team top to bottom. More explosive offensively when things are clicking. But yeah, that's a good one.
More explosive than Ohio State, because I think that's the only reason they're surviving.
I think I trust their offense more. Yeah, I do.
I mean, I'm probably just talking about like the big play.
All right, maybe
it's not consistent enough.
I trust that they're not going to get any. Go ahead.
I don't think there's any debate on the best win thing. We can disagree, but it's funny as I don't
even disagree. I just think like the perception for the Oregon, but I'm cool with Texas, Georgia.
Yeah, but as we're going through it, my instinct was I trust Texas more. Like I don't care what the AP poll says, I trust Texas more. But then I'm like, yeah, but what do you trust? Like a different Ewers after the injury? Because he has.
I trust a different Ewers a little bit. I trust if Ewers rounds into shape and gets healthy, I trust it. Let's put it this way. I think it's more likely that Ewers rounds into shape than it is for Ohio State to fix their issue on the left side of the offensive line, where they were basically down to their third left tackle. And the second one, even before he got nicked up, was not performing this past week. And that's a problem. When Josh Simmons went down at left tackle, I'm not saying he's, Jonathan Ogden or Willie Roaf or someone like that. But he was playing at a high level. And NFL scouts I was talking to were like, he might be the next dude, And so when he went down, you could see like they weren't able to establish the run, and it was a problem protecting on the left side. So like I trust that Ewers is going to get better faster than Ohio State's going to fix the left side of their offensive line.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're on the same page with that answer. Here's another thing off of Ohio State, though. Last year, kind of buying into the Aller stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was before the Ohio State-Michigan games, right? I remember, I don't think I picked Penn State. Maybe I did. I may have just said, like, I'm going for it, like, let's see what happens. If it's not this year, then when? That type of deal. They were 6-0. and they're at number 3 Ohio State, and Aller was 18 of 42. None of the receivers get any separation whatsoever. I don't know the McCord. Like McCord had some games against. I mean, there's a reason McCord's not in Columbus anymore. On top of everything else, but are you allowing yourself? And we still don't. I don't know as of this taping the extent of the Aller injury, but Prabula was terrific. I mean, he adds a completely different element to this.
I kind of like Bo.
All right, is he a better fit for this new offensive coordinator? That might not even be debatable, right? And Aller's been so good that, like,
Aller's elevated his game. More people have asked me questions about where's Aller getting drafted. More scouts I've talked to about, like, coming into this past week, it was kind of like, and it was a little bit more early in the season, but Nussmeier and Aller were the two, like, hey, like, their games, like, this is interesting. You know, that I think Nussmeier's a better prospect than Aller is, but Aller was playing at a different level than he had, you know, in previous years and certainly last year. So, but man, I liked Bo. I didn't know what to expect. You know, you see Aller crying and goes and hugs him and you know, devastated that he couldn't finish out that game last week against Wisconsin. And I'm like, uh-oh. You know, and all along, the only thing in my mind that mattered was, can they obviously get through this? But we got a big one next week, Ohio State. How's this going to play out? And then the more I watched, what was he, 11 of 13? Protected the football. Yeah. You know, like, he looked there's something about, like, sometimes guys come in and you can tell within the first 3-4 snaps, like, moment's too big, he's not ready. Every snap he took, I gained confidence in him. It's not like he gained confidence. I started to get like, oh, okay, we're all right. We're all right here. And yeah, maybe he is a better fit.
All right. Good answer on that. But I think what I'm trying to figure out here is the momentum of Penn State, even as we wait on the Aller news. But Tyler Warren, finally on the Heisman odds list, probably not going to be in New York, right? You know, there's the 7 or 8 names you can go to with Penn State. And it's not like Ohio State. You can't, you know, name a million guys. But are you mentally, like, thinking Penn State can do it this year?
I don't trust them, no.
Okay. All right.
Like, I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm so sorry. Who in their right mind can trust a James Franklin Penn State team in this spot? And James can hear this and he can yell and he can motivate his team and but, like, we're here to deal in facts, and facts are generated by history and trends. And what's your counter to that Penn State? It's not that they don't show up. It's not like they always, like, lay an egg, like, oh, that wasn't their best performance. They're not there. We've been saying this for years. They're not there. Franklin has said it in press conferences. Like, if we want to take it to another level, these are the games we've got to win. We're not there. So, like, they're better this year. There's no question about it. I want to believe, but until I actually see it with my own 2 eyes, how can anyone sit there and be like, oh, I trust them? And the other thing too, like, it's one of those, Ohio State didn't look great, struggled this past week. You know, you watch the Nebraska game. They should have had a big lead at the half. They didn't. They let Nebraska into it. They couldn't run the football consistently. All those things that we've talked about, the offensive line. But Ohio State's going to bring a different brand of football to the field this Saturday. I'm pumped up. We have Joel Klatt. I'm only here to promote my show. Joel Klatt's joining us tomorrow. I'm just playing with you, man. But Joel Klatt's going to join tomorrow. He's covering that game. I can't wait to talk to him and see, you know, who he's talked to, tape he's watched, all that stuff. But this game's huge, and there's no way Ohio State doesn't put a different brand of football on the field this Saturday.
That's the thing, is it sets up for a perfect spot after the Nebraska game.
Exactly.
Like, you're watching it every week. You're kind of talking yourself into it a little bit. And even though Prabula was terrific, like, I just would rather have Aller in this game because of what he went through and how incredibly disappointed he was at the end of last year, basically because of the 2 games, the Ohio State and the Michigan game, which was, I think, even worse. But what I can't help but realize here is, like, are you gonna trick yourself into this because of because you're right. Ohio State's going to be, like, they'll probably just be different, and the history will be the same. Ohio State's won 11 of the last 12, 6 straight. Okay, worst loss of any of the potential playoff teams.
Notre Dame, NIU, Northern Illinois, 28-point favorite, right? They got outgained. It's not like it was a fluke. They got outgained by 102 yards in that game. And you got to remember at the time, like that A&M win, A&M kind of was sputtering. What's going on at quarterback? This is the same old A&M and all that. So since then, that A&M win looks great. And it was an ugly game early in the season, all that. But that for a resume builder, that's huge. A&M is 10 this week in the poll coming off the LSU win. So, like, the perception of Notre Dame, my thought after that game was, oh, man, like, I love Marcus Freeman. This is going to be another rough year. They're just not there. And I'm not saying that they're there, like, contending for a national championship, but this is a damn good football team. Notre Dame has got a damn good football team. I love Jeremiah. I love the running back. I think he's the real deal. They're running the ball. They're balancing things out. I think the passing game is always going to be a challenge, but I think it's improving. The defense is really good. This is a really good team. But at that moment, I thought that was like take a Sharpie with the rankings and just like Notre Dame's gone. And it hasn't been the case. They've overcome it.
The A&M win is going to look better and better. And they weren't great, but Riley Leonard's been better.
Yep.
And the funny thing is they're going to have 3 ranked wins here if they take care of business and then end up beating Army, where 2 of the ranked teams are going to be Navy and Army here. But there's just, I don't really know who else you would even include in the conversation, like how deep you would have to go, because it's still worse. I mean, Northern Illinois is 4-4. They just lost to Ball State.
Right.
Bama losing to Vandy. If you want to go beyond who's top 12 in the AP, like how far you have to go to find the other loss that's there. Is it Kentucky at home for Ole Miss? No. Like there's just.
Although the way Kentucky's playing since.
That does but that's what I'm doing here. Like I'm trying to find someone else in the top 25 that has.
You asked the question, not me.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you, I can't really find it because the Vandy loss is not a bad. I mean, they were ranked
Vandy's
last
a good
week
team.
until right.
Vandy's a good team.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So when I was looking through the SEC stuff, you've got Georgia, you've got Texas, you've got Tennessee. I didn't even rank Tennessee in my top 12.
You didn't?
No, I have A&M ahead of them. There's
no
way.
I just wrote because you said you wanted to talk about the SEC in the top 12. Georgia 2, I'm cool with. Texas 6, I might have them at 5. I would Tennessee would be in for me.
That's fine. I'm just
trying to pull up.
I put Indiana in at 12, and I put the other teams. I put Tennessee behind. Not that I think there's this massive gap.
Does Iowa State belong?
I think they do. I've had them ranked now for a couple of weeks in my.
I got to watch more. I'll be honest. I got to watch more of them. I got to watch a little bit more of BYU. Those are the 2 teams.
Let's do this exercise.
Okay.
Because it might not be the SEC fest that people thought it would be at the beginning, but in comparison to what, right? How many teams in the SEC would you pick to win the Big 12? Let's do it that way.
Okay. I know that's a better question.
All right. So I'll go by
Georgia's 1, Texas is 2.
Right.
A&M's 3, Tennessee's 4, Alabama's 5, LSU's 6, Ole Miss is 7.
You'd pick Ole Miss to win the Big 12.
Yes, sir. Yes. And I'll stand on it. I'm not like, maybe. I will stand on that. I will. Missouri, no. Like you get down to Missouri
crosses
I'm not there
the line.
Like, I'm not sure Vandy doesn't win the Big 12.
You are way more down on him than I thought. I thought I was like at least fair between BYU, Iowa State, and K-State's still 7-1.
Yeah, I like K-State. I think K-State's potentially better. And I just admit it. I have watched BYU. I have watched Iowa State. I have not spent as much time watching those 2 teams as I have Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Miami, all these other programs. So I'm not sitting here and just trashing the Big 12 because it's a better conference than I thought. BYU's better than I thought. Iowa State's better than I thought. Kansas State's a good team from what I've seen. Like, they're a good team. And by the way, don't count out Colorado the way Colorado's playing.
They could be a 9 or 10 win team, man.
Yes.
And the first couple weeks in, I was like, I'm over it. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And now they've just put together a really nice run where you could say the schedule isn't that tough, but like, look at what that conference is about. Look what that conference is about to do to itself in the last month.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All right. So 7. Ole Miss, I think, is pushing it, but I can't get mad. How about them with their Callaway smoke helmets? I think LSU wins the Big 12. I'm not sure if I can go there with Ole Miss. But I like Jackson Dart way more in the quarterback conversation. When
they
you
had
come
10
back,
sacks this past week. They're better defensively at times, not always. But
Oklahoma's a joke.
Oklahoma's a joke.
They cannot.
Is it 19 sacks they've allowed in the last 2 weeks? I think
it was 9 against Ole Miss, and at one point when the game was still in the balance, Jackson Arnold was sacked 5 times over 7 plays. 5 times over 7, like when you needed to have it. And, you can get on him for saying, well, if you know
I
that.
got news for you, too. Biedenbaugh, their offensive line coach, like respected in the NFL as the best offensive line coach in college football. Like, truly. So
yeah, we've talked about about Oklahoma always every year. You're like, oh, there's 2 guys that are going to get drafted. But I do think Jackson Dart doesn't get talked about at all in the draft stuff. He had 2 plays in that Oklahoma game. There was one where he gets flushed out. The first thing isn't there. He's running to his right, and he leads the receiver back at the numbers, like inside of the defender. And there's just some awareness stuff with Jackson that I think is further along with him than it is, a lot of the other guys you're watching on Saturday. All right. So maybe we disagree on Ole Miss. Too. Yeah, no, he has. He also, is all first team. Does he care if he gets cut in half today? No. He doesn't care. He would have to lose that in the NFL. All right. So let's do I'm not going to draft Jackson Dart on my Heisman thing here. Our Heisman stuff as of right now, I don't know if there'll be any changes. I believe you picked first this week. Here's what we have. Todd has Cam Ward, Genty, Klubnik. I have Hunter, Ewers, and Gabriel. Who do you have again? I've got Travis Hunter, I've got Quinn Ewers, and I've got Dylan Gabriel. So I'm actually in a better spot than I thought. I just should have never allowed you to have the Ashton Genty pick. Should have boxed you out of that.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter's coming off a massive game.
He's number 2 right now. Cam Ward's now number 3 on FanDuel. Cam Ward had been like number 1 for Heisman odds, and it's Gabriel, Hunter, Ward. So actually, I'm doing better here than I thought. I was just so pissed about the Gentry week.
Yeah. I don't – fine. Like, Gabriel's number 1. I just don't see Gabriel winning the whole thing, winning the Heisman.
Well, I'm not going to tell you how to do your board, so I'm not going to say
Yeah. But then again, who are they going to lose to? Yeah, I don't like these odds. They suck. I'm looking at them now, so I'm pausing. I know it doesn't make for a good show, but anyway,
not the best stuff we've done.
No, it's not. It's not. But
you could also not do anything, but you might be worried about me picking up somebody.
Who am I going to pick up? Nussmeier, Milrow.
You may have picked him up after the first half.
In my opinion, we have the 6 guys. Well, 5 of them. We have 5 of the guys that should be there and are the most likely to win. With Genty,
what if Iamaliava has that game, though? What if he finally has that game?
Yeah. Genty, Hunter, Gabriel, Ward, Klubnik. Yeah. I mean, we've got 5 of the 6. So who are you gonna swap? You're not keeping Ewers, right?
I'm gonna drop Ewers, and I'm just gonna pick up Carson Beck for the weird
what
Georgia wins the SEC thing. I mean, I don't think he's even been that good at all. So look, I'm picking the 6th guy here who's not even going to be in New York.
Yeah.
So
if Travis Hunter wasn't on Colorado, I would tell you to snag Shedeur because what he's doing is phenomenal. But yeah,
Shedor's not getting enough love with any of this stuff. You're right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that instead. You know what? Thank you. I'm not going to take Beck. Ceruti put me down for Shador. Learn how to pronounce his name when I pick him next time. Last thing on college before we get a couple NFL thoughts, because McShay was actually at the Patriots game yesterday. I love doing this with you and just those moments of like, who the hell is that guy? Jordan James has been a dude. Tyler Warren has been a dude before on this. I'm going to offer up, because, Benjamin Morrison for Notre Dame is out, right? Hip surgery.
Yes.
And he's projected to be a first-round pick, correct?
Yes, he is. Yes.
All right. So Leonard Moore, number 15 corner for Notre Dame, he had a couple moments against Navy where I had to do a little deep dive on this dude. So I
love when you text me 15 FR freshman Notre Dame. Who is this dude? Those are my favorite texts.
Yeah.
I haven't even, I'm sending this text to you before I even Google what the roster for Notre Dame. That's what I love.
Yeah. So he's just 15 freshman.
What'd you find out?
Well, he's been tasked with a big responsibility with Morrison out. And Morrison's been talking to him week by week. Just a couple plays where that Notre Dame secondary is the strength of the team, and Morrison being out is a huge blow. But to see this guy who's had to play some major snaps, it was just a moment, a fleeting moment of knowing who the guys are for the most part on Saturdays, and then going, who's that guy? Like Bowling Green's tight end.
Bowling Green's tight end. I love it. All right, I'll give you a guy. Penn State, watching that game. Amin Vanover. He's a senior. 6'4", 258. Played in just, I had to look him up, because he's pressure after pressure. It turns out he had 5 pressures in that game, 5 hurries in that game. The top win rate, I guess, I looked up and saw something like 20, I think it was PFF, had 15.4% pass rush win rate of 27 pass rush snaps. But I'm watching the game, and I'm like, I know Abdul Carter. I know some of these dudes. And then the fact that he's a senior, Amin Vanover, and I don't know anything about him. So I looked him up. He played in 8 games as a backup last year. He only has a half a sack. But the fact that when you got a guy like Carter on the opposite side and you got a senior who's emerging, they've always got dudes in the front 7. Penn State always has dudes. And I'm not saying Vanover's going to be a star. I'm not going to say he's going to be even a draft pick. I'm just saying I watched that and I didn't know. I had never heard the name Vanover before. And to see that he was the most consistently disruptive defensive lineman for Penn State. And the reason why it was exciting and interesting to me is now we got Ohio State this week. And we've got an Ohio State team that's down to its second, maybe third left tackle. Can this guy Vanover, who's kind of breaking out right now, keep that up and have some big spots against Ohio State? So that's one guy. There's another one too. And I know USC is not on the radar right now and massively disappointing season. But I've kind of wondered who's going to step up and be another weapon for this team. And the first 5 games, Makai Lemon, who's a sophomore, just 5'11", 180 pounds, he had 7 catches. The last 3 games, he has 18 catches for 296 yards. I didn't do a deep dive, but he missed one of those first 5 games, so I'm guessing nicked up, wasn't 100%. But And again, I haven't studied USC as much because they're not winning and playing at that level. But Lemon to me really jumped out the last few weeks, but this past week specifically.
All right, well done. We went deep on that one. Yeah, because Vanover, he was never on my radar. And you're right, Penn State always feels like they have these guys. And as you were saying it, I was like, who? And then it's like,
exactly.
He's been there 5 years. Okay. Couple things on the NFL. I like to do these revisits of the draft. Jameis Winston gets the win yesterday, chucks it 41 times, doesn't have that horrible Jameis turnover where I said this in the open, so you don't know this. When they took the ball over down 24-23, I texted somebody, was like, this Winston pick is about to be all-time, horrible. This is going to be awful.
And he threw it.
And Kyle Hamilton drops it.
He threw it for you.
Yeah, I mean, and then it was funny because I got the text back.
And of all dudes, Kyle Hamilton drops it.
Right. Probably my favorite safety in the NFL. So I remember that draft, the Winston Mariota draft, And we were actually both together in Manhattan Beach. And I was like, will you just pull up your program and take me through what it is that you see that I can't see, that I'm not educated enough. I don't understand what it is. And you started throwing me Winston's throws in the anticipation on his throws. And then you started showing me Mariota's throws going, look at, like, they're just not the same throws.
Mhm.
It's not the same thing. And it was like a 30-minute tutorial that McShay gave me.
I remember
and I
that,
went,
man.
okay. And I was like, okay, from this point on, I am convinced I will not. And I don't know where I was with it prior to that session, this Todd talk, if you want to call it that. And you're like, Mariota is not Winston. And it's played out that way. But I think it's interesting to always kind of do this every few weeks with you on where is Winston's career based on your expectations for him before the draft.
I recognize the flaws. I recognize just like his speeches and what everyone's come to love about Jameis is the emotional tie, right? Like, we're all emotionally tied to Jameis. And for a long time, I was like, oh gosh, all right. Nonsense.
Hand up. I'm kind of like, I don't really care. But
now it's become a thing, like the Jameis speeches and his
sure
pregame, all that stuff.
People
right?
really like it.
Yes.
Right.
You don't have to love it, but I'm just saying it's a thing. We can agree on it's a thing. But my point in all of this is that same emotion you could see in his game, like when you're making decisions. Sometimes he's a smart dude. I think he's gotten like smarter and more. Like, watching his tape, like, I think he reads things, he processes things. His anticipation has always been really good. But there were always a few plays a game where it's like the emotions got the best of him. He pushed it too far, right? And so that was always a thing coming out. But as I gave you at the Shade Hotel and the great film setup, just a little backdrop on it. My favorite week of the year, professionally, every year, NFLPA game came into existence, All-Star game. Everyone knows the Senior Bowl. Everyone knows the East-West Shrine game. But ESPN got rights to the NFLPA game. And we probably had like 8,000 people watching the game. And what ESPN didn't realize is that me and my guy, Kevin Whittle, who's now with the Baltimore Ravens as a scout, doing an amazing job, but he was with me for like 12 years. We would go out to the NFLPA game before we'd go down. It was the week before going down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl. And we would post up at the Shade Hotel. And we had a blast. We would go out at night. We would have dinners. We'd have a couple cocktails, all that. But we grinded tape. We must have been the only two assholes in the history of the Shade that would spend about 10 hours a day in the room with the Pacific Ocean as the backdrop, with like a cute little fireplace thing in there, with that with the sauna in the middle of the bedroom.
The porn tub?
And the porn tub. And it's two dudes, hats on backwards, like ripping Diet Pepsis and all that stuff, watching tape with the coach's clicker.
Yeah.
So it was a weird scene. But
it's like an Austin Powers hotel room for those that don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. It's until you walk into one, you can't really understand it. So that would be we would spend like 8 days there every year to do this like small little NFLPA game. And Russillo would come by and watch tape every once in a while, and some other people who lived in Manhattan Beach. But Jameis, to me, had the tools to be a really good NFL starter. His career was not what I hoped it to be, but I always questioned, is he going to be able to knock out some of the bad habits and some of the things that get him in trouble? And Mariota, while I loved the system he was in, I loved how he operated it. I loved his, just like competitiveness and all those things. I never thought he was going to be a good starting NFL quarterback. Never. I truly did. And so that to me is the difference. And it's good to see Jameson get another shot. I mean, to see that Cleveland offense operate the way it operated yesterday against that defense, with that guy coming in and replacing the guy with that contract that he had, it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, look, it's the only time they've scored over 20 all season long.
That's wild, man.
Yeah.
And he was the third string quarterback. You understand that, right?
Yeah, I saw something about that where, look, DTR came in, so I guess I shouldn't debate it at all. I guess
it wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't like Jameis was clear cut back up, like he was ready to come in if something happened. Like that was not the case.
Right. You because you went to the Pats game, is there anything that you can tell us about Drake May before he was in concussion protocol?
He looked good.
Okay. All right.
He looked good. Like
he
brought energy to the Patriots offense, and they were struggling. I mean, I never get to go sit in the stands. I brought my 10-year-old son, Tate. We had a blast. I mean, thank you to the Patriots. Thank you to the Jets on the field before. My son's an idiot and an animal. He just walked like, they rope off the sidelines. He walks up, and I'm talking to Jerry Madelon, our days at ESPN. I see G-Matt there. So I'm hugging Jerry and catching up a little bit. And I look over, and my son is now in the freaking end zone. And I'm like, oh, no. Like Joe Douglas and Stacey James, who got me tickets from the Patriots. I'm like, oh, man. Like, so I'm like, all right, Jerry, I got to go. My son. And I look over, and he's like, hey, what's up? With his hand, Tate, with his hand up. And it's at Braylon Allen. They come out of the tunnel. He's like high legging, getting warmed up. And Braylon comes up, and you get this 10-year-old with his hand up, and Braylon's like, looks around like, is someone punking me? Why is this 10-year-old on the field? And he's like, hey, little dude, slaps him 5. So that's how my day started. So anyway, we get in the stands. We're watching the game. 2 takeaways I had. Drake May is bringing energy. They don't trust him as a passer yet. It's all about running the ball. They're trying to win with defense, special teams. They got a big return. But I was more, I don't know. I was pleased with what I saw, and I was kind of like, he's got a chance, man. If they get some weapons eventually, if they can protect and all those things. But he's starting to gain confidence, his running ability, his ability to extend plays. He's got a chance if they can put things around him. So that was encouraging.
It feels like a vibe evaluation. He threw 6 passes before he was out of the game. So
yes, but then Brissett comes in the game, and the offense just dies. The life comes out of the offense. The life comes out of the stadium. It's just conceding after conceding after conceding. Run the ball, short passes. It's like third and 6. He throws a 2-yard pass. Like it's frustrating. So there was a difference, and that's kind of what I wanted to see. What's the difference? When Brissett came in, and it was a world of difference. Other side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers is not Aaron Rodgers. We all know that. He's got the ankle, the knee, coming off the Achilles, the hamstring. Every play is its own entity, is the best way I can put it. There is no energy in that offense. His inability to, he's a phenomenal passer. He's Aaron Rodgers. We all know that. But his inability to extend plays and to do anything with suddenness is so apparent when you're there live. We had decent seats, so I'm not far away from the field. Like, it's so apparent. And you watch all these NFL games, and like, it just, they're stuck because of it. And the run game doesn't tie to the pass game the way it should. It was frustrating to watch because you got dudes everywhere. I don't know that there's a worse loss in the NFL this year than that, considering this was supposed to be the turnaround. I'm watching the pregame show with Greeny and everyone going through, like, they can win 8 of their last 10 or whatever it was. And I love Joe Douglas. I think he's put an unbelievable product in terms of individual talent on the field. The defense is not tackling well. They just seem to lack an edge on that side of the ball. While they have a lot of talented players and all that, but I don't know. It's missing, and it's frustrating to watch because I know how much has gone into that, and I know how much talent is there. But I think offensively, they're so limited right now, and the lack of tempo and they're just one play to the next is the best way I can put it. It's its own entity rather than everything being tied together, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense, and it's a really unique way of describing it. And I would agree on the roster. You're going to get accused of being a Joe Douglas apologist because you're friends with him. That's fine. But if you go through
but I'm also Joe would be pissed at me if I gave him credit where credit wasn't due. I promise you that. There's no denying that the talent is there. There's also no denying what the hand that ownership has had and why things have gotten to certain ways, and because of it. Let's just leave it at that. Like, an outsider looking in can tell some of the things, but in terms of drafting and bringing in talent and having like securing a roster that's good enough to compete at a very high level, that's been done.
Here's what's crazy about this. You look at the Jets at 2-6, 9 games to go through the next 9. There's not a, hey, that's a win in there based on who they are. Texans at Cardinals. Cardinals, good luck figuring
We talked about that, remember, in week 2?
Right.
This Cardinals team's good. This is a good squad.
I don't know if good is the right word. I'm not sure.
I don't think there was an expectation. I think the Cardinals are better than people think, and I think we're starting to see them. Marvin's getting more involved. Like I see a natural progression happening, and it's promising.
The Marvin stuff, there's certain games I'll admit to, like defensively, like they're just a bunch of guys that like, are they fast? And like, is there a bunch of just dudes? And then it's like, yeah, the stats don't say they're really good. So what am I watching? Am I falling for the uniforms? So if you just run through it, and I don't want to
go ahead.
Do this because, that's a win. That's a loss. The old Francesa bit, win.
Greeny had no problem doing it on countdown.
Oh, they did it?
Yeah.
I didn't
him
see
and Rex and Brewski up at the board. Like it was local
Where's the
radio.
Win then? Okay, so let's do it this way.
They had like 8-2, including yesterday's one. This is a pregame show. I think it was 8-2. Were there 9 games left?
They're 2-6. There's 9 games left. They had them
yesterday.
So that was
yesterday at like 11:30 in the morning or 10:30 in the morning before I took off for the stadium. It was 8-2 down the stretch. Brewski came in and ripped away a few of those W's.
Well, where's the W? Where is they will because it's the NFL. They're going to win a couple of these games. But the last 9 games, Texans at Cardinals, we just gave Arizona some love. Colts, Seahawks.
Colts is
at
a win.
Dolphins. Are you sure? What if Flacco's playing?
No, I'm not sure about anything. But
I want a sure win.
Are we doing okay, sure win. That's what we're doing. Okay.
So Colts, Seahawks at Dolphins, at Jacksonville. Rams,
Jacksonville's
at
a win.
Bills, Dolphins. Okay, so you got them. So
they win 1 or 2 of the Dolphins.
So they're going 3-14 this year.
No, I just gave them 2 more, so 4-13. I don't. That's not. You're saying sure wins. I would give them 3. Yeah, whatever. I hate this game.
Okay,
I think they could win. I think they could win 6 of the last 9, though. Put that down. Clip that. Jets win 6 of 9. Still don't get in the playoffs, so why even make this take, Todd?
No, this is good. We'll cut this out. Let's change the filter on
Ceruti, trash this segment, please.
Great spot to finish. I know you're busy with the new show. Again, check out the McShay Show. Please subscribe to it. And especially if you're a college football fan, that Saturday night recap is going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for the time today, man.
Thanks, brother.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari, 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Life advice, rr@gmail.com. We've got Kyle, we've got Steve. Oregon is here. So everybody back
Oregon.
On the
What you said? Nice.
Yeah, everybody just thinks it's Oregon. With that, I was thinking Oregon forever, and now I kind of like it. But I think the headline is that all 4 of us hung out last week, and we didn't.
3 of us made a real effort to do it. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Whoa.
I'm going to stand up for him here because I packed my car full of two guys and 2 golf clubs and 2 knives. And I mean, I don't know if you know this. You gave me like 12 koozies, Ryan. Shout out to Watertown Whiskey. So it was a big night for me. And so I'm not going to stand for this, Ceruti.
So there was some conversation that I wasn't a great host. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. That wasn't that you were great. It just, we drove, what did it take us? Almost an hour, 45 minutes, Kyle?
It took a little longer than an hour, yeah.
it was a bit of a drive, and then drive back wasn't too bad. But we're dedicated. We were dedicated to getting out to Manhattan Beach. We did it, and the place was great. Good to see you. Happy we did, but it was a good amount of effort put for three of us.
It was a ton of effort, which I was appreciative of. But now I'm sensing a tone here. I'm sensing that maybe I should have had it catered or something. I don't know.
No, we got Jack in the Box on the way back, buddy.
We did. We also had a Coors Light at your place, so that's cool.
Jesus Christ.
A Coors Light.
I was gifted a knife that I couldn't bring back on the plane, so I think I gave it to Kyle.
The streak continues for your boy.
Right, we were going to give Wargon one of the Benchmade knives, but then he couldn't take it because he had a checked bag not a checked bag, he had a carry-on as well, so we couldn't have a knife charge on you guys. Okay. All right, so it sounds like no one had a good time.
I was blown away.
I didn't say I didn't have a good time.
I thought your house was incredible. Yeah, I was blown away. The one thing on your wall, a Patriots Chris Long jersey. Thought that was cool.
It was signed to number one Pats fan, Ryan.
The one thing, I saw on the walls there was that.
No, remember there was the piece of art too he was talking. Remember
that was leaning though. I think that was more leaning than hanging.
Count. That's fair.
Yeah, it was a piece of art from this New Orleans artist that I've always really liked.
And you were really happy with your
admired.
haggling, I think you said. You were like,
I was
proud
happy.
of it.
Yeah, I went into the gallery and the guy was haggling with me, and I tried to leave, and then I felt great about the price that I paid, and then he hit me up a couple months later and was like, I can do the bigger one for the same price. Yeah, and I was like, I guess I didn't do that well. But it was my first time buying a nice piece of art, and I had admired it for years on my trips to New Orleans. And, I pulled the trigger, but it's not really a central piece. It doesn't tie the room together. But yeah, the guys came over. No one was allowed more than one Coors Light, apparently, because it was a school night, and I had to work. I had games on, but Kyle left with some golf clubs. I don't know. Leave it to the floor here. Take it anywhere you want to go. Maybe there's nothing to talk about because it was so forgettable.
Well, it wasn't forgettable. I just thought, like, we were kind of in your
Ceruti
way
has
a
this
little
look
bit.
on his face.
I know.
Right now.
I felt like we were in your way a little bit because there were games on. NBA's back. You know what I mean? So I didn't know, like, am I talking too much? Like, what should we? It's like I see he's reaching for the notepad every once in a while. Like, is he going to say when it's time for us, or we just be proactive and say like, all right, well, this has been great. Where's the golf clubs? So I really didn't know which way to go, but I don't know. I think it went well. I'm a little surprised this is the direction we're taking.
I didn't say I didn't enjoy my stay. I'm happy I went there. I'm just saying that, it was a bit of a hike for us to get to see Ryan. I flew across the country. I was there for 3-4 days. And, we put in a good amount of effort. So it was good to see you, buddy. That's all I'm saying.
I could have done more. Now that I think
you did
about
enough
it.
for me, buddy. Thank you.
I hooked Kyle up.
Kyle got 2 sets of golf clubs. He's living life. I mean, Kyle, would you have gone if it wasn't for the golf thing?
Yes. Let me just say that.
Sure?
Right. Let me just say off the top, yes. Yes.
There's some other stuff we can add some detail too, because like when I threw the clubs in, I didn't realize there was this utility iron that I had custom ordered from Titleist.
Still thinking about that interaction.
I couldn't find it. And then when I was handing him the bags, I was like, oh, there's that utility iron that I've never used that I couldn't find it. It's brand new. But then I was like, it's in the bag. It's in the bag. So this isn't about guilt. You should be excited. And by the way, I can hit a normal 4-iron. So I don't need utility. I think I may have put it in that bag because I was like, why did I order a 4-iron? But I was in a real gear. I'm just trying to put it all together like a mad scientist over here and be like, which do I need a 58 to be steadier? So anyway, it's just part of being into golf. I think one of the other observations is that when I got the text from Ceruti, be like, where to park, and then you just forget the full Kyle package that you were about to be witness to. Kyle rolls up in a convertible Mustang, which I don't even know.
Big old dent on the side. Yep, missing a door handle.
But the pipes, are those street legal?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because that thing makes some noise. I mean, and the top was down and it wasn't that hot out.
No,
I also loved.
It dropped about 10 degrees the temperature as we got closer to Manhattan Beach, and it was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. We went top
that big ocean. Yeah, the big ocean. Every now and then we'll drop the temperature based on inland numbers, and then we park. Everything's cool, and then Kyle desperately needed a cigarette.
I waited like an hour before I said a peep.
He did.
I think that you felt like you couldn't have asked. Like, you definitely wanted to smoke a cigarette immediately, and I wouldn't have cared. That's what the smoking patio was for. And when Kyle was like, "Where can I smoke?" and he's like, "I guess I'll just go out front." And the funny part was he came back in and his arms were covered in shit and not real. Like just and he was like on the couch and I looked at him like, did you just fall down?
No,
like, what
dude,
happened out
you know what I was doing? I was leaning on your awesome railing. You said you had people come and clean the inside of the house, once every week or two.
I got to clean that.
Maybe hit the railing outside.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's on the to-do list.
I felt pretty good. I was like, I'm leaning on this incredible house, by the way. The house really blew me away. Congratulations to you. But I'm like, cool guy leaning on the railing outside, just smoking my first cigarette in like 8 hours. Didn't smoke in the car with Ceruti and Wargon, even though the top was off. I think the ash becomes a wild card, and I didn't get any praise for that, but I just thought that was the right thing to do.
I'm giving you
not
praise.
To subject them to that.
It's your car.
I didn't think about it at the time, but that took some real determination from you, so I'm proud of you.
Thank you. But then I came back in and you were like, "What's on your arms?" And I was ready to tell you a scar story. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to tell Ryan, like, yeah, I've been through some shit. Here, look at this one." And then I look and there's black shit all over my arms. And you were like, "No, dude, is it on my couch?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Is it on your couch?" Anyway.
I think Ceruti could tell that because it was OKC in Denver, that I was probably freaking a little bit.
Pretty locked in.
Yeah.
No,
because I knew I was doing the pod the next morning on that game. So I was like, I bet Ceruti can read right now that he's starting to rewind plays now. But I was
pausing the top TV's paused. Jesus, we should get out of here.
You also got a phone call from Tommy Alter in the middle of the hang, which there was just a lot of stuff going on. But I could tell. I know that you don't like. I didn't want to overstay our welcome. I don't think we did. But because I'm with you. Like, we were just hanging out for a couple hours, had a beer, go home. Like, there's really not much else to do. It's not like we were going out that night or doing anything. So I knew, like, hey, like the clock's kind of ticking. We left at a good. I had a 6 a.m. flight, so I had to get out of there anyway. Side note about Manhattan Beach, a really nice place. I've been there a few times. They don't want anyone visiting there, do they? There's no parking anywhere. Like, it's the most exclusive place that I've ever been to in my life. There's nowhere to park.
Even the sides of the roads, it's just like, oh, nope, there's an ADA dip right there. We could just put the ADA dips everywhere. There'll be no parking spots on the street. Nice
there
job.
Just no outside.
It's the most handicap accessible, but no parking unless you own a house.
Yeah, no one can park here. And I think it's by design.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Because the beach is always, even on July 4th weekend, where you think a beach is just packed. It's like, you can't.
You have to parachute in.
You should have seen it when there was outdoor seating during COVID, because then all these restaurants were taking out all of the extra parking in town. And you talk to the restaurant owners and they'd be like, well, this is ridiculous. You're getting rid of it. You're like, yeah, no, I know it's better for you, but man, like hey, do you want to go get an ice cream cone? And be like, well, let's see what the flights are.
Wow. It's classic Russillo, anti-small business. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I know. I can't win. Even if I say like, well, no, I totally understand your point, but there's nowhere, like, there was never anywhere to park before any of this stuff happened. By the way, I didn't make shirts or go out and petition to take out the pride, just for the record.
I will say too, I did text you a couple times that day, and it did cross my mind. Like, do you want us to come? Because I could tell, sometimes like Ryan, I did. I could tell you did. You definitely did.
Yeah, come on.
Okay,
that's
all right.
That hurts.
No, I just don't. I don't know. The vibe sometimes it's like I texted you a couple times and you're like ETA. I'm like, I don't really know. This is gonna be a problem because Kyle's got a couple tapings. We got to do Bill. Like, I don't have a hard time, but I wasn't 100% sure. We didn't want to wear it our welcome, but I'm glad I went. I'm glad we went. You got to see Wargon. Was that the first time you met Wargon? No, actually, it was a live show. That's right. So Wargon got to come along.
Wargon, I saw you at ESPN at some point, didn't I? There you go. You've never worked at ESPN?
Locked in.
Let's go.
Don't take that out either, man. Don't let him ask you to take that out.
No. I never once. I was happy to leave it in. Yeah, no, I remember. So wait, the first time we met in person was the live show in Philly?
Yep.
I feel like I know you so well. It's crazy. Yep. Yeah. Wargon, any impressions? Anything you feel like you needed to add?
A lot of weird feelings.
There were a lot of weird feelings. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Well, I got to work on my hosting skills. That's
all
what
right.
it sounds like.
It's all right.
Next
nice
time.
place though.
Hot tub and cold tub. I'll just leave it there. Come on. Never seen that before.
Use them both a lot.
Yeah, I can tell.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, especially this week. Back has been fucked up for 7 straight days. Really excited about it. Okay, let's read emails because this seemed to go a little bit longer than I thought, but I felt like we had to take on some reference or give some reference to that night. Okay, blacked out mistake. Real quick, 29, 6'2", 200 pounds. Nice. NBA comp, Gordon Hayward. Playmaking slasher, streaky shooter. Gym stats don't exist because I only lift to stay in shape and keep the joints flexible. Oh, okay. Pretty pragmatic guy. To the reason I'm emailing, I recently got blackout drunk at a party and ended up kissing my friend's girlfriend. I don't even remember doing it. I had to be told the next day what happened. For context, I'm not attracted to her like that, and I've never had any thoughts of doing something like that. But my blackout personality is very lovely with everyone, and I've been known to step across the line when I've been that drunk. I know it's a dick move, and I've most likely lost a friend from this, which I will eventually come to terms with, but I would like to reach out and apologize to him and just want to get y'all's opinions on the best route to go about that. Thanks, fellas. Love the pod.
Would have been so much better if you just cursed her out. I'm sorry, man. This sucks. If you just said something you've always been holding in, that would have been so much better than what actually happened.
Yeah.
So you're saying the apology tour is a little easier on just an aggressive verbal outburst
than like, how long have you been plotting this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, it's the classic drunk word, sober thoughts thing. And it's like, wow, you took it a little step further in actions. So I don't know.
Like, were you thinking about this when we were dating? It just all these questions you probably.
And I believe this guy that he actually wasn't, but blackout is blackout. So it sucks.
It really depends on who the other guy is. Like, what's his temperament? What's his deal? 29, probably still, like sometimes when you're really young and this happens to you, you just think you have to like hate everybody and be super mad. And then it's kind of like, all right, who else was at the party? How come you didn't say anything? Oh, I'm going to dump her and then I'm never going to talk to you. And then 7 dudes that were there. Like, it's like, cool. You're going to be sitting by yourself. Awesome. Great job. It's hard to live that way. Very hard to live that way. So Armageddon moves aren't always the move. At 29, you're not going to be around each other as much. And it sounds like you're obviously bummed out. It's probably not been a great few days from that. But it really depends on what his temperament is. He's most likely unapproachable at this point. So everything that you're trying to do now because you care and you want to tell him what it's probably you're in the hot zone right now. So I don't really think.
Yeah, the less you're heard from for the immediate future, the better, probably.
There's not like you're going to have to. The timeline really is going to depend more on who he is and how he's wired and how he feels about you. You also should probably like run it back in your head and be like, how important of a friend am I to him? Because especially when you're younger, like the guy that has the ski house. That guy seems to make out with a lot of people's girlfriends, and then dudes are still friends with him because he's got a fucking place in Breckenridge.
Yeah.
All right?
What do you bring to the table? Yeah.
Yeah, right. So where are you in this dynamic of if you still want to be friends with him, do you have anything of value that would make him want to continue to be like, man, the guy gets great Bulls tickets, right? So I think you need to reach out to a neutral party.
We'll start with her, right? Did he mention that he even apologized? Like, she's the one that got, like, I don't know if assaulted is the word here, but if you had a good lawyer, you could make the case, right?
Well, wait a minute.
I'm joking about. I'm not really saying that, but I'm just mean like, have you like you're all worried about him? Like, are you even on the record yet as saying like, hey, my bad for kissing you in front of everyone? You probably weren't expecting that,
right? But by saying it that way, it makes it seem like we're oblivious to that part of the deal. Like the way I read the email is they made out, like mutually made out.
Exactly.
So I'm not even thinking any of that stuff.
My first instinct was, did she, like you're just blind drunk and was, I don't know. Maybe she was trying to. I'm gonna avoid that. Never mind.
I got you. You're one of those guys.
No, because I've had buddies that have fallen into that trap where it's like, hey, I'm gonna, watch this. I'm gonna piss off my ex, and
right. I know what you mean.
That works both ways, by the way. And it doesn't mean you should be absolved of any blame, but that does happen from time to time. I would say it sucks because you're not this doesn't mean you're a bad dude, but it is kind of like a shitty dude move, and that's really hard for a guy. I feel like I'm a good dude, and if I was to do that, I'd really beat myself up over it. And I'm here, some neutral party telling you like, this is what happens in life. It's not that big of a deal, but you're probably like, man, now everybody thinks I'm like a scumbag, and that's a shitty thing to kind of have to bear. But I will say, if the guy doesn't get over it, like if you guys are actually really good friends and like this isn't like a repeatable thing that you do, like you're not like a home wrecker just making out with dudes' ex-girlfriends, then like it kind of should blow over.
It's the current girlfriend. So
or current,
yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know what the dynamic is with her. I assumed this was fairly like, hey, we were hammered and whatever. So like that's a whole different element. But as far as like the friend part of it, I think you reach out to the neutral party buddy that sells your side of the story a little bit. But I would give it a couple weeks at least. All right. But you don't want it to go so long that then it's later on. It's like, and you just never even said anything.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So eventually you are going to have to apologize straight up to him if you care about the friendship. And at 29, who knows? Maybe a year from now, it works out because of the steps that you took now. But none of those steps are probably going to pay off immediately at all. And yeah, if I still really, really liked my girlfriend, it was like somebody that I was serious about, and I know that I probably would have a hard time being friends with you again.
Walking out of a room when, all three of us are together. It's just weird. Just weird thoughts now. I don't know. I think it's good.
What did you just try there?
I'll go get us some beers when you're walking. It's like, oh, they're in the room together. I better hurry up and get to the fridge and back. Still don't get it. It's not laying it out for you. That's clear enough.
Yeah, maybe it's
like if we all go back to being friends, and now now you're walking out of the room to go do something,
right.
and you're
now I got it.
All right,
sorry,
kind of killed it. I had to explain it 3 times anyway.
Yeah, no, you explained it fine. I thought there was like another layer that you were adding, and that's my fault. All right. There was a follow up to the bench seating. People are sending me links to the new Scout. I actually already saw it. It's not available until 2027, and I probably wouldn't buy that one anyway. I did when I first moved to Manhattan Beach. Was like, maybe I'll get one of those refurbished old Broncos. Yeah, and then it was like, maybe you do something different than nobody else is doing. Get an old International Scout, and that went away quick. Kind of.
I'm gonna park that thing.
Nowhere to park it with the lift. Because then I looked at one, and I was like, I can't fit it in my garage. And the guy was like, well, I can lower it. I was like, because the whole point of having it is to not have it lowered.
Don't you dare, dude.
There was also a little golf cart window where I think I called and got an estimate on the golf cart. And
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, but I don't think it would be.
Is Manhattan Beach a golf cart town?
A little bit, but then you got to park those too. And it's not like there's a million golf cart spots. I just feel like it'd be a little different. I know some people love them. I think if you have kids and you don't live within walking distance of the beach and you want to load up the golf cart with some stuff and then just go down to the beach, like it's probably the move. But for me, I don't know. I don't. All I can imagine is that guys would be like, well, I would never drive home, but in a golf cart.
Yeah, well,
yeah, like I think you start taking some license.
Still counts, dude.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like,
no, you're right.
It does.
No, you're right.
It definitely does.
You're right. You're right.
No,
it definitely does.
I remember we were in Charleston, South Carolina for a bachelor party, and one of all my buddies wanted to rent one out, and they made it a point to be like, this is not just like hey, I could skate by because I'm technically not driving a car. It's like, dude, they will pull. If anything, they're more likely to pull you over.
Yeah, you stand out like a sore thumb.
Yep.
Exactly. So anyway, so off of that, somebody wanted to. I'm going to share this with you guys because I think it's kind of funny because this guy nailed this like as if he was reading my mind. 6'6", 230, also handsome.
6'6", 230. God damn.
We get some good looking tall guys that listen to this show. Just fit from a lifetime of working around in the woods of northern Vermont, running a sugar bush.
Jeez.
Pickup comp is a poor man's Hashim Thabit. Never played growing up, but I looked the part until I get on the court. Not writing with a question, just a bit of feedback. I was riding home from Newport in my own pickup. I was actually in Derby as life advice came in. This guy's nailing places that I've spent a lot of time in. Just south of Derby line, apparently. As I listened to Ryan talk about Milton style back in his Burlington days when he got to the part where he'd pick up his girl shirtless, arm around her, and go get some awkwardly long pause. Soft serve. I burst out laughing and rewound 3 or 4 times to listen to him code switching in real time. There's so many terms now with the code switching or whatever. I'm like, what are they talking about? But now I think I actually understand what that means.
Do you? Because it's a little bit like gaslighting for me.
Well, anyway, he nailed it because I was going to say what soft serve is called in Vermont, and they're called creamies. But I knew if I said that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I love that.
Yep. Don't love it. Nobody does. So he caught me in real time. He said creamies. They're called creamies. I can see why a major podcast host would want to say that he and his hot girl got creamies together.
Long Johns.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did. You know what? You're right. Because I almost said, yeah, we'd stop it. Because then I was going to have to explain it. And then I'd have to be. And the weird thing is, I'm not from Vermont. But they claim me. And obviously, there's a lot of family history on one side of the family there. But I don't want to be using the term creamy regularly. And I think everybody can understand that.
That's fair. Totally understood. Get where you're coming from.
Let's get to a guy who's bummed out. All right. 39. Gym stats, 5'8", 230 after losing 15 pounds, trying to get my healthy weight at 215. Yes, I was a linebacker in high school and college. Nice, dude. Some London Fletcher vibes here. Player comp, Gary Payton Sr., great at defense, can score buckets when you need me to. So I've been in the restaurant business for 20 years. Very good at what I do. About 3 years ago, I landed the dream job of running a restaurant group in town that included a distillery. Liquor, beer, and wine is a passion of mine, not just the drinking part. Boss made huge salary promises as long as I put in the time and effort, help get everything in line, and help launch a new restaurant with everything that comes with that. Insane hours, no extra pay, almost getting divorced, mental health, physical issues, seeing the gold at the end of the rainbow. After all that, about 6 months ago, I had the rug pulled out on me and was let go for someone cheaper. Once I put all the systems in place, hired and trained everyone to make them successful, and worked my fingers to the bone, they didn't want to pay me what they promised. Dejected and needing to pay bills, I took a job as an assistant manager of a restaurant. I'm looking back now, I realize that success in this business is nearly impossible. There's always someone younger and cheaper. Once you fix the issues, they will bring that person in it to maintain. I've taken my expertise and started a small consulting side hustle. Three clients last year for great money, but it's going to take some time to get this off the ground. I'm looking for a fresh start, no degree, and considering any field that will let me have some sort of work-life balance and will get me to my financial goals. But starting fresh at basically 40, also open to going back to school for the right career. Any advice would be welcome. Love the show. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that sucks. I don't know the business that well at all, really. I mean, all the stuff that I did back in the day, I was so young, it doesn't really matter. But I will tell you, it feels like the empty promise thing is pretty universal. And when you go into things like, hey, all this stuff is going to work out, and you're just like I do think some places are just like, cool, this idiot is just going to give us everything he has, and we have no intention of ever rewarding all of that stuff. You know, just this carrot that management will dangle in front of you all the time. And I'm not saying like, hey, accept it so that you're less disappointed, but it's something that you have to have happen to you enough to then have your defenses up. And then it's funny because then people will be like, oh, you know, this guy's like a little like on edge about what could potentially happen. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you're just, all of us are, again, the results of our experiences. So you're still young enough. And it sounds like the goal should be for you to try to get into some kind of ownership thing, so this doesn't happen to you. But I don't know your financial situation. You know, most people, it's a huge ask to be able to do something like that. And the fact that so many of these places don't work out doesn't feel like a great option to suggest to you. But it sounds like you need to try to find a way to be more in control of what's going on. And this consulting thing, like, yeah, guess what? Overnight, it's not a raging success that gives you all this financial freedom that you have. But is there a map here? Is there a roadmap of like, hey, if by 45 in 5 years, if I can do all of these different things, that this thing can take off? And then you're going to have that freedom, and you're not going to have somebody that's going to want to replace you because it's your thing. So it's not ownership of a restaurant or a bar. In this case, it's ownership of the thing that you're still passionate about, where you're not susceptible to somebody else pulling the rug from underneath you. I also think that it's worth doing this because I've had to do the self-scattering report a few times where I've had a lot of times in my career where I know I've been fucked with. And I'll tell the person, you're fucking with me. That doesn't go over well. And I'll look back at certain encounters and I'll think, okay, well, you had this here, and then like this happened here, and then this happened here, and then this happened here. And like, look, my run, I'm really proud of. Like every place I've ever worked has always wanted me to stay. I've not worked at one place that didn't want me to stay other than the Sporting News debacle when they re-signed me to a contract and then didn't sign it. And then
even the Trenton Thunder?
Trenton Thunder wanted me to stay.
Yeah, that's right. They're actually probably taking advantage of you more than anybody.
Yeah, no, they love it.
We squeak a couple more years out of this guy.
Fucking idiot, $200 a week. You're 80, 100 hours a week during the season. No, I quit on the day. As soon as they said, you're not going to be on the air, we're going to bring you back, slowly retrain you. I was like, I'll never be on the air again. I said, hey, all right, cool. I'm out of here right now. On the spot, quit. I was like, done. So anyway, the point is that like whenever I play back like, oh, the Trenton Thunder thing, or, all the stories that the OG listeners already know because they've heard them so many times, I'd be like, could it be me? Could it potentially, let me see here. Could it be me? And you're like, well, Trenton lied about what my salary would be and almost bankrupt me. And they're the ones that put me on the air when I told them I'd never done it before. So whose fault is that? Because I wasn't a play-by-play prodigy. When I was with the Sporting News affiliate and they lied about a contract.
You were pretty good at tarping up the field, though, right? When it was raining quick.
Mm.
Yeah, I was one of the stronger guys on the tarp.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you right now, that wind gets a hold of the tarp and you don't have batting gloves on, it could rip a fingernail right off. Because guys are like, I'm like, batting gloves to pull tarp? They're like, dude.
Trust me.
Wind gust. And I think they also, because they were trying to like still kick me in the dick a little, they were like, when you're on the call and it's a rain delay, because you're second guy, you have to run. I was like, so when I'm on play-by-play, I have to say into the game, like, hey, looks like it's raining. Gonna pull some
I'll be right back.
BRB.
Yeah. No, seriously, like I had to do that. Although we weren't allowed to say that it was raining because we didn't want to advertise that rain was a possibility to potential customers.
Right.
So when we were rain delays, we had to like come up with reasons that it wasn't rain.
Oh,
that stuff actually works. Do you think that actually
I could do an hour. I could do
I just
an
remember
hour.
in the radio days, like, don't say break. And it's like, okay. Like,
well, what else?
If I'm interested in the show, then I will come back. Or I'll stick around. Like it's I don't know.
So
the break is not why you're a bad show.
You're assuring us that we'll be right back.
No, you don't say you're right back because you never go anywhere. That was the cultish approach to it. So like one guy, I think it was Bruce Gilbert, he was leaving right when I was at ESPN, but I don't know if he was the brains behind it all, but it's actually pretty convincing in a room if you think about it. It's like ESPN radio is always there, so we never leave, so we're never coming back. Right? Like that was
in a little bit we'll be doing this. Is that what how do you dance around?
Up next. Everything was up next. And it was like teases were the most important thing. Teases were more important in radio than the radio.
The actual radio.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now. Like it's just one of the most unbelievable. Like, did you hear anything I said the previous 8 minutes? Like, your tease kind of sucked. Okay.
Let's work on that.
Yeah, but what about the 8 minutes that the person's listening? Yeah, well, I wasn't really paying attention, but the tease was a little weak. Anyway, the point is you go back and run through your own self-scouting report of all your interactions. Like you need to, when I do it, I'm like, no, it is everybody else's fault. But you need to like do some real. It's tough. It's really tough to do it, and I have no idea. You just wrote us an email. It's a few sentences. I don't know anything about you, but it may be something that you're not aware of, that you're doing, that you have, and that makes the next stop end up with a better ending.
Yeah, I don't think I've met a consultant, and I don't know that many, but I haven't met like a consultant that it's like worked out. You could say it's worked out for that like doesn't kind of have a sick gig. It sounds pretty awesome in theory if you can, make all the right choices in that space. It sounds like those guys are having a lot of fun.
So you're saying the people that you've met in the consulting industry all seem like they're having a good time.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. consultant's also one of those things, like when you tell people that, they're like, oh, that's kind of mysterious.
It's like,
that
are
means
you
you're
a hitman? I don't even actually know what that means. Like,
what do you consult for? It could be anything. You could technically you could call yourself a consultant for anything if you got
Joe
one
House
client,
might be a consultant. I think if anyone's sure, I don't know if anyone knows what I think he might be considered.
I think he
a
is
consultant
actually.
of sorts.
Yeah,
I know. I mean, I guess
right,
I rest
but didn't
my
I
case.
say didn't I ask him like once what he, because I had no idea.
Yeah, you're like,
very,
hey, hold on,
very
what do you
rudely.
do, man? Yeah.
What do
It
you?
was
What do you
ruthless?
do? It was pretty rude. I was there. I knew you weren't trying to be rude, but it was a little rude. We told
The tone said, "I've always wanted to know this," but the tone also says, like, "What could you possibly do?" What's the other
Yeah,
part?
but I love House. So
I know, of
it
course.
wouldn't ever have been. You actually do something.
But that was actually kind of how it sounded, though, which was funny. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess I'd never really. I mean, I never asked him, so I could have just done that. But
Just been on pods with him for years. Just never even realized he didn't know what he did. Like in the real world.
See,
funny.
there's one
a lot
of
of
those
people have
self-scouting-
that question though. A lot of people.
But
did
I
have that
needed you
question.
guys to get me there, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? I actually was the only non-sports job that I've had in my adult life. I mean, other than a couple bartending gigs, was an insurance consultant.
Ugh.
Which
Sounds special, but
That
it
doesn't
sounds like
sound
it actually wasn't, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty messed up because the state of Vermont was like, you can't be a consultant. You've never worked in health insurance. It'd be nice for you to be a consultant in something that you've worked in. And I was like, I got to tell you, I think I agree with you guys. Like, I don't know why they gave me the
I
job.
get myself into a lot of trouble here, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't like I was doing well. Actually, it wasn't my fault because the guys that started the consulting firm gave me the job because I was going to be cheap and I was going to work.
Yeah,
And then
don't
6
blame
months
me,
in,
blame them.
Yeah, 6 months in, like the state of Vermont's health board was like, "Who the fuck is this guy signing off on clients?" And they were like, "Oh, he's our new guy." It's like, where did he work? MVP Health, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. Like, no, what ails you? And that was it.
That was good.
That was the end. That was the end of that. Then they had to like buy me out for something. And I remember I got really pissed. I was like, I've been going out, boots on the ground, meeting with all these people, and you're gonna give me $2,000 or something. And they were like, well, you didn't really bring in that much revenue, so we're just paying. I was like, how did you guys not know that I couldn't do this? They're like, we didn't know. I think they sold that company for like millions too.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Could have been.
Employee number one.
Yep.
Golfing 3 days a week in the consulting business. All right. That was the longest thing ever because we actually had to fill a ton of time because of something else. So I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know. Wargon, you want to come over next time? Fucking right.
Wargon had a great
Love that
time.
from him. Great passion. We'll do it on a non-Thunder Nuggets night, the night before pod next time. And then, Kyle, you and I can just tank a bunch of beers and see if we can start some shit in some parking lots or something. Sound better?
What parking lots? Am I right? Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Here we go. What parking lots? Mulaney. Good job. All right. That is the podcast for today. Check us out on YouTube as well. Ryen Russillo podcast from this